Cricket et al. It's a website. It's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. It's Gideon Haig over here.
Peter Lawler over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast. We're still somehow in the middle of the IPL. Not sure. When do we get to the middle bit? When does it start? Can we start to talk about it reaching its climax?
It was T.S. Eliot, wasn't it, who said that April was the cruelest month, but he never had to endure this part of the cricket season. And the worst part of April is you get to the end of it and you go, oh, my God, I think we're only at the turning point, aren't we?
Yeah, and he talked about the world ending not with a bang but a whimper.
Well, nice, Gideon, nice.
Yeah, have you been paying attention to it, Pete?
Scant attention, Gideon. I kind of have a look at who done what, where, and when, and nice to see our old mate Virat is still virile with the bat. What cap do they get? The orange cap or something? Is it or the red cap?
And they're top. RCB are top.
Are they?
And Jacob Bethel finally got a game after warming the bench for the whole tournament. He got 12. So that was certainly worth waiting for.
Well, that was well done to him. And my heart swells with pride at being an Australian and seeing Josh Hazlewood do so well.
Yeah.
Good on him.
He iced it in that last game, didn't he?
Well, he's quietly intelligent bowler, isn't he?
He is, and he's adapted. Yeah. He's adapted to T20 because he's a man who bowled, very automatically. His stock ball was actually quite predictable, which made him a formidable force in first class cricket, but perhaps made him a little bit conventional for T20. But he's remodelled his game. He's got lots of variations now. He's going at 8.5 and over.
Yeah.
And he's bowling in the death. And so, you contrast that to, I think Stark's going at 10s. Bumrah's always
Paddy's going at about 9s, isn't he?
Yeah, Bumrah's 7.5, but Bumrah makes up his own rules. But that's a remarkable record for the Hoff.
Krishna, what's his name? Prasid Krishna at the GTs.
Yeah.
He's going all right too.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a very good economy rate. It's under 8. So that seems to be a good economy rate, doesn't it? 8 or 9 or 10. Yeah.
But, of course, I always find it fascinating who's going badly. I mean, that's really what we look for, I think, in the IPL. We look for those guys who kind of fall by the wayside, who can't deliver in consecutive seasons. Jake Fraser-McGurk, he was the world was falling at his feet this time last year, and now he's out of his team. And that can be hard when you lose your preference because you slip down the ranks, you go to the bottom of the overseas player pile, and you have to work your way back up. Of course, he did so well under Ricky Ponting's coaching. He's got Badani now. I don't think that's probably made much difference. He's got the second season blues, and he's kind of pitches probably aren't as quick as last season, so they were really skidding on. That really suited him last year. And now he's kind of caught between the two stools, isn't he? Of sort of playing fearlessly, which worked for him last season, and trying to play himself in, which he's not quite used to. So, it's a hurdle. It's one that he'll probably be a better cricketer for overcoming.
So, Jake Fraser-McGurk and Glenn Maxwell walk into a bar. How's your IPL going?
Yeah. Well, this Maxi is always a lightning rod, isn't he, for criticism? And you wrote a bit about this last week about the tension, the ongoing tension, the underlying feud between Maxi and Viru. Talk us through that, because he describes it in some detail in his autobiography, doesn't he, Maxi?
Yeah, Viru's never had a thing with Maxi, and when Viru was appointed the team director back, how many years back was that, Gideon?
It'd be 10 years ago now.
Yeah, 10 years ago now. Maxi was the captain and coming off a bad year, but it didn't go very well at all. As those team directors can often cause a little bit of trouble in franchises.
They're always interesting, aren't they? The roles of team director and the role of batting mentor. You're never entirely sure what they do.
No.
They sort of have all care, no responsibility. No one ever threatens to fire them at the end of a bad tournament. It's always the coach or the captain who gets it in the neck. But they're kind of there as a sort of a symbol, a kind of a front man, general kind of probably intermediary between the senior players and the owner, but they're they vanish when things are going badly, and they're very conspicuous when things are doing well.
You kind of get the feeling sometimes that they're put in there as kind of the eyes and ears of the owner, as a sort of shadow team boss, and that's where the problems can come. I mean, did you see at the IPL auction, there was only one coach who wasn't sitting next to his team owner. It was JL, and there's the tensions arise in that area. So yes, they had the big falling out all those years back, but it's kind of, well, I sense there's something personal towards Glenn. It's not exclusive to Virender Sehwag. This opinion that Glenn perhaps doesn't apply himself as well as he should, and it's a problem of players like Glenn Maxwell who probably appear to take a more casual approach to the game, and Glenn definitely takes probably a more casual approach to training than some of the professionals around him. But that's what works for him, and when it works for him, it goes really well. Yeah. But when it doesn't work for him, that's when people step back and go, mate, well, in this case, Virender said, you looks like you're here for a holiday. In fact, he said that of all but a couple of foreign players, which I thought was interesting. Is that an emerging view in the IPL, a sort of hostility towards certain foreign players?
I mean, I think it is part of the general kind of, there is an attitude that the rest of the world are merely mendicants where the IPL is concerned. And Viru, as we know, has become a kind of a Hindutva windsock.
Yeah.
You can question a foreigner's performance in a way that you could never question a local player's. I'm not sure that Viru will ever have a crack at Rishabh Pant, who's having a shit season in quite the same way. But there is a belief that there are. It's a popular belief among fans when overseas players disappoint. It's kind of like that resentment that American servicemen used to court in Australia during the Second World War. They're oversexed, overpaid, and over here. But the paradox is, of course, that the IPL now forces players to go into the auction on pain of exclusion. So there are probably some players there who don't really want to be there, but they kind of have to be there. They've kind of been press ganged into going into the auction at a time when they could probably do with a break, but nobody dare speak out about it. I wouldn't be surprised if Glenn falls into that category. Glenn's got a young family here. It's a long time away from home. He has played a lot of cricket lately.
Yeah.
The last thing you want, probably, if you're an Australian player who's played a bit of cricket or who's actually come back from injury, because Glenn did have to come back from injury last summer, is another season in the IPL. It would probably be pretty hard to get up for. It might have been better for him if he'd not put his name into the auction, but he couldn't do that. So people are never satisfied.
Look, it's not an out of character season. I mean, he made about 48 runs in 7 games this year.
Yes.
He made 52 runs from 10 games the previous year. He had a very smelly introduction to the IPL. He failed in his first 2 seasons. I think only played a handful of games, but he has these breakout summers. I mean, there was 21, 22, 23 where he was scoring heaps of runs. But there was some very barren years there for Glenn Maxwell. We used to talk about him failing upwards, didn't he? They cut him and he earned more money at the next franchise.
I think it can depend on who he's playing with.
Yeah.
I think when he was playing at RCB, his best seasons were at RCB, weren't they? When he was playing with Virat, when he was playing with AB, I think we had a solid support base. He could go out and do the Glenn Maxwell things.
Yeah.
Maybe he's miscast in this team. But of course he's up there with Ponting, so you would probably imagine that Ponting, if anyone, was capable of getting the best out of him.
Yeah. Ricky would have an arm around him for sure. Sorry, what was I just about to say then? Oh, look, you were talking about the people that surround Maxi when he plays, and that is very important. You need to be happy in your team environment. You need to be happy with your coach, And you particularly need support when you're going badly. If you're wired like Maxi is, where his highs are so high and his lows are so low. I remember when Simon Kadich was the assistant coach at Maxi's franchise during COVID. Simon insisted that Maxi's partner, now wife, be with him at the IPL, and said it worked a treat. And remember, they pulled the pin on that tournament halfway through because of COVID, and went to the island. There was actually, I think there was talk, I don't know if it actually happened, of presenting Maxi's wife with the trophy because he'd been going so well, and they put it all down to her presence. And there's some truth to it. He was happy in himself there.
But of course, these
Rishabh's
things
not
are circular,
going well
aren't
at
they?
all.
If you're making runs, you're happy.
Yeah.
And you're happy if you're making runs. So,
On that point around Sehwag sort of having a crack at foreigners, and it was unfair to and I'm sure that if he had his time again, he probably wouldn't say that only 3 have not been at the IPL for a holiday.
I don't know, actually. Viru is not a creature of regret.
No, he's not.
You only had to see the way he batted,
isn't he? Yes, he wears the orange cap, doesn't he? Don't drink water during the podcast, Peter. But, if the shoe was on the other foot, Gids, and the BBL's down here, it's worth $1 squillion, and Indian players and Indian coaches are coming down here, and particularly around the coaching stuff, I reckon. When an Australian coach comes in and suddenly all the staff's Australian and the roster fills up with Australians. If you're an Indian looking at the IPL, you're saying, well, geez, guys, you're like bloody bees to honey on this one, aren't you? But and I think Australians would have a similar response if that happened in the BBL.
Yeah.
There would be a bit of resentment towards foreign players taking over franchises and things like that.
You very rarely see an Indian player being assailed about their form. Did you remember last season when the owner took KL Rahul to the woodshed about Gujarat's performances, and the response, the criticism of the owner relative to Rahul was disproportionate. I thought, how dare
That's right. You back the
Indian
owner,
player be put on the spot like that in the public spotlight.
Yeah.
As JL said when he came on the podcast, he didn't have a problem with that. That frankly, it's the owner's money on the line, and they're well within their rights to remonstrate directly with a player. But it's interesting that Rishabh Pant's having this terrible time at the moment. He's got past 21, I think, once. All right,
that's Viru. What does he want?
It's Fiery came up on my phone. That's a good mate of mine. I play cricket with him.
All right, as long as it's not Trumpet of Patriots.
No.
Have you been getting messages from them? Do you get messages from the Trumpets?
I don't actually know.
Oh, I do.
Which is surprising, really.
Yeah, they probably know they've got your vote. Keep going.
Anyway, back to Rishabh Pant. Rishabh's only scored 110 runs in 9 innings so far, and he's striking at less than a run a ball, and which is just extraordinary, isn't it? When you think about the way in which Rishabh Pant plays the game. What explains that, do you think? I mean, in one game he went so far down the order that he was outside the top 6. That's just almost inconceivable. That was the LSG game against the Delhi Capitals.
Yeah, I got no idea. It's just something really odd going on there, isn't there? I believe Rishabh's a very headstrong sort of player, captain, does what he wants to do.
I do remember being told that Rishabh is a tremendous overtrainer when he's going badly. Like if he makes runs, he's fine. He cruises. Right. But if he fails, he really punishes himself on the training track. Just works the house down. So it would be easy to see how a player getting into a rut like that would tend to self-replicate the rut by overtraining. And this is a tough time in India to be training incessantly. It's so damn hot. And when you're playing day games as well, that takes it out of you. Maybe he doesn't have enough time to recover, enough time to sort of break the circuit. But it's a long-term trend with Rishabh. He's gone at sub-120 strike rates for 4 of the last 5 seasons. And I'm starting to wonder whether he maybe falls into the category of Sehwag. Because Sehwag worked brilliantly in Test cricket, but not in ODI cricket or indeed in T20 cricket, because his kind of chaotic method was disruptive in the longer form. But the shorter the game, the more commonplace that approach becomes. He kind of comes back to the field. And you also got to wonder whether Rishabh, as a captain, isn't feeling inhibited by his role. I think he takes these positions seriously, and you could very easily see him at the age of 27, even 27. He's a young 27, starting to feel the press of responsibility.
How do you respond to failure with the bat, Gideon? Are you in the nets Monday morning?
Oh, it ruins my mood. Absolutely ruins my mood.
But do you double down on your training?
It depends. Yeah. But, I also know that there's absolutely no correlation between how hard you work at training and how you go at the weekend. You can have 2 fantastic nets. You can take 1,000,000 catches, but still won't stop you dropping the gobber on the weekend, and that won't stop the umpire firing you out LB when you've hit the ball on your pad. Yeah. It's just the way that it is. And sometimes what you need is to not train, to just relax and to leave it to your intuition, to leave it to your natural talent. The natural talent will help you through.
Good on you. Have you been keeping up with the Pakistan Super League? It's even more difficult to keep up with than the IPL.
I see that Davies only made 150. I'm sure there's a good reason for that. I see that the Aussies aren't getting much of a go. I think Abbott and Bryant have only had a game apiece. Mitchell Owen's played a few, hasn't he? But tell me, what's going on, Pete? You're all across this, obviously.
No, I think you're right across it there. Davey hasn't been going so well. But I think the most interesting thing that's going on in the Pakistan Super League is the response that this terror attack in India, or the impact it's had on the Pakistan Super League. Apparently it's been taken off. Like you can't watch it now in India. The live streaming's been pulled down.
Yep.
I'm told that Crick Buzz have pulled the PSL off their website.
Really, right?
I haven't checked that. Someone might have.
Yeah, right. Okay, interesting.
I think if you go onto Crick Info when you're in India, you won't be seeing Pakistan Super League. The Indian staff, and there was over 20 of them that were working in the broadcast crews, have been sent home as well. So I don't know what ongoing effect that's going to have on the tournament. But of course, it again highlights those tensions that we've talked about in the past. And I've been one of the few who understood India's reluctance to play in Pakistan when it came to the Champions Trophy. And I noticed they got their heads caved in by Lawrence Booth, the Wisden editor, over that in his editorial that we might talk about later. But those tensions are real, and they're serious, and they're there for a good reason sometimes.
Well, Pakistan nationals have been given till Wednesday to get out of India.
Have they really?
A pretty drastic
and
step.
Look, and there's no way I'm saying that the Pakistan government or military was involved in that thing. I don't know what happened, but these are the responses that happen from the neighbours. Geopolitics and cricket, Gideon.
Yeah, so I guess Pakistan Super League goes from being the IPL seconds to nothing at all.
Yeah, you wonder what how.
If you won't be recruited now from the PSL to play in the IPL. Corbin Bush got out just at the right time.
It's a really good point. Yeah. Those foreign players who are in the Pakistan Super League this year may end up with asterisks next to their name. Yeah. So we may never see David again in the IPL. David Warner.
The odds.
Do you think we will ever see David Warner in the IPL again? I was assuming he would get a year or two in the freezer and come back.
Don't ask me. You're the other hemisphere of David Warner's brain.
Oh, but you're the great mind of cricket, Gideon. You know these things. You can see him.
If I wanted an opinion about David Warner, I would ask you.
Good on you. And good on one of the Cricket et al. Readers, what's his name, Chris, who, when commenting, when I would sort of ill-advisedly wrote a piece on the IPL last week on Maxwell, his response was, on the whole, it's hard to remember who did what or when. He's been watching all of it, and it does get a bit like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. I must say, I really salute those Cricinfo writers who write so expertly on it, like Kartik Krishnaswamy. It's their memory is absolutely compendious, and I've always thought that one of the problems with IPL is that it's so perishable. The last night's game immediately effaces the previous night's game, but not where they're concerned. I noticed that Vaibhav Suryavanshi of the Royals played his second game the other day. I think we were talking about him last week. He got cleaned up for 16. He hit another couple of sixes at the age of 14. I think he got frustrated with some short stuff from Bhuvaneshwar. Maybe he'll lose his place now. Maybe it will seem like a dream that he ever played at all.
And Gideon, back here, you wrote a very nice piece about Stacky this week.
Yeah, thanks.
Last week, sorry, Keith Stackpole passed away.
Yeah, that was actually a shock because we saw Stacky just a few months ago delivering the eulogy at Ian Redpath's funeral, and he looked in good nick.
Yeah.
At times, of course, Stacky carried a bit of weight, but he looked. He looked distinguished. He didn't look old. He looked distinguished, just like us. Yeah. And I think Bill Laurie said that, he'd been talking to him the day before and he was just typical Stacky.
Yeah.
There was no sense that he had, his health had subsided. It was a heart attack. That's probably a merciful way in the end to go. He hadn't had a long battle with ill health. And it was surprising how quickly the memories came back. He was one of those players who played cricket in such a way that was quite distinctive.
Yeah.
His signature style, the back foot force, the cut, the pull. He often played bareheaded, so you kind of remembered his sort of rubicund features. He was a kind of a symbol of Australian aggression and enterprise during that period. Had a great series in the Ashes in 1972. He was associated with that generation, the Chappell, Lilly, Marsh generation. And of course,
he was vice captain to Ian, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
And that Western,
Interestingly,
and Ian
he
spoke
was
very highly of him as a sort of leader.
Interestingly, he turned down the opportunity to captain Australia in the Prudential Trophy in 1972. They played 3 one-dayers at the end of the tour. It was the first time that Australia had ever done so. And the Australians thought so little of one-day cricket at the time that Chappelli said, I can't be fucked playing. Stacky, how do you feel about captaining it? And Stacky said, I can't be fucked either. So Chappelli ended up having to do the job.
Oh, did he? Chappelli actually had to do it.
Yeah.
Chappelli said he'd been speaking to him recently. Yeah. It did seem sad. It's a bit of a passing out. But there was something distinctly Victorian. Do you reckon?
Wasn't there?
Yeah.
There's a great chapter in his autobiography, Not Just for Openers, called Cricket the Victorian Way. Yeah. And it's actually a really good sociological observation of why Victorian cricket is different to New South Wales cricket.
Tell
Certainly repays study. Well, one of the things was it's not a huge drinking culture. Players like Stacky and Redders and Paul Sheehan and, of course,
Bill.
Teetotal Bill were not the ones for staying out late and having big parties and, breasting the bar at midnight. They were very, very earnest cricketers, very, very competitive. And I think that Victoria has always had a bit of a separate identity at Sheffield Shield level, which is probably an inheritance from that particular generation.
That sort of,
Doer, a bit doer. They're kind of Australia's Yorkshiremen.
Yeah, conservatives, aren't they? Go to church on Sunday morning, and work Saturday morning, play cricket Saturday afternoon. Yeah. Shops are closed, all that kind of thing. Yeah, but all those flashy blokes on the north of the Murray, they're at the pokies on the weekend.
Well, they, of course, as we all know, New South Wales players are always on the way to playing for Australia. Victorians, I think, do feel first of all that they are Victorian. They are representing the state. It's interesting. I went down a bit of a I went down a bit of a rabbit hole this morning because a number of those obituaries for Stacky mentioned that story, that great story, and it is a great cricket anecdote about him in the West Indies in the Kingston Test match where West Indies picked the young pace bowler Uton Dow, who bowled a string of bouncers, and Stacky took him to the cleaners. And afterwards, someone called out from the crowd, allegedly, or someone wrote a banner, or a commentator said, or someone wrote.
One press box wag.
One press box wag called to mind the 11th commandment, thou shalt not bowl. Brumtish. Anyway, it was the last Test match that Uton Dow played, but I had a look at his record, and it's not bad. He took 97 first-class wickets at 27. He didn't retire until 1977 from playing first-class cricket, so he kind of anticipates that great generation of West Indies fast bowlers. I think perhaps it's time for a reassessment of Uton Dow, who, praise be, is still with us in his mid-70s. I would like to hear that Thou shalt not bowl story from his perspective.
Right. Well, I'll look forward to you writing that piece for Cricket Ed this week, Gideon. There's another rabbit hole Cricket Ed will go down this week. Yes. Yeah, I've been at the library over the weekend looking at something on to write. But anyway.
Yeah, right. Surely good. Surely good. Should we take a break and come back in a moment on Cricket et al? Why not, indeed?
You ask the question, you answer it.
Just the way I like it. So, Pete, we're going to the World Test Championship next month or in a couple of months, and it's going to be a nuisance, isn't it? It's going to be a nuisance when we get off the plane. We're going to have to hunt around to get a local sim, and it's just going to be a pain in the ass. When you land and you're momentarily lost your bearings and you're out of contact with the world. But relief is at hand, Pete.
It is.
It is. What is Saily?
Saily, well, it's something that I wish I'd heard of 20 years ago when every trip started with that sort of jet-lagged queue for a local sim and then all the nightmares associated with getting a local sim. And in some countries, you can't get a local sim unless you've got passport and 15 references and you lend them one of your children. Exactly, but with Saily is an eSim, Gideon, that you only need to install once.
Yep.
And it's just going to work for you. So I'm going over to the UK. I'll be in Portugal first. I'm going to London, then I'm going to New York, and then I'm going to the Caribbean. Saily's going to work in all those places, and I don't have to change anything.
It works in over 150 countries, Pete.
Yeah.
150 countries. And it saves you lots of money on roaming fees because God knows we've been stung by roaming fees in the past. I'm about to enumerate the many advantages of Saily. You only need to download it once.
Yes.
And it eliminates the need to install a new eSIM in each country. Saves time. Definitely needs to save time, as we've been saying. You avoid scams. Have you ever been scammed by a fake SIM card salesman outside a railway station or an airport?
No, but a couple of times at a few of the Australian providers down at Marrickville Metro. Yeah, my current plan's a nightmare.
You stay connected. You're not wandering around looking for a public Wi-Fi, which God knows we've both done in the past. It's compatible. It's compatible with all iOS and Android devices. You have 24/7 support. Chat support is available around the clock wherever you are in the world, and you'll get a full refund if your device isn't eSIM compatible, even though it will be. We promise.
Most importantly, it minimises those roaming fees.
Indeed.
So, Gideon, you seem right across this, so I'm going to let you keep going here. I'm impressed by your knowledge on the topic. How does it work?
Well, let me tell you, Pete. You can buy a plan. There are multiple plans in over 150 countries available at some of the best rates online. Once you can install the eSIM. If you've purchased the eSIM plan on the Saily website, you need to download the Saily app first. That's a trap for the unwary there. Then you activate the plan before you leave, so you'll be able to log on to a local network when you land without the need for an internet connection.
I always travel with one of those little sort of get your SIM out pins.
And we all know that feeling of being in the press box and not having a mobile signal or not being in the Wi-Fi. You feel like half a man
Or the cold sweats you break out into when you have to use sort of your data from home on internet roaming in Singapore, and it costs you, $180 when you turn the phone on.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Happens so easily. It's as easy as paying £1 million for a beer.
It was only £100,000.
It's getting better, that story. It's getting better. All you need to do is go to saily.com/cricketetal, use the code cricketetal, and you'll get an exclusive 15% off your first package. How about that?
I'm sold. If Gideon Haigh recommends this, I'm up for it.
A man who has an iPhone 7. It's good enough. And we're back on Cricket Etal. I might mention that Stacky's funeral is on Wednesday at 11 o'clock at our Holy Redeemer Church, 4 Barton Street, Surrey Hills. Stacky was a Catholic too. It's worth observing. And I think, quite a Sabbatarian. He would have grown up in a household where you didn't do very much on Sundays. Stacky also worked for Claude Neon. I remember one of the most interesting conversations I had with Stacky was about neon, on which he was very, very expert. And in fact, when Claude Neon closed down here, he kind of became the keeper of the records of that company. He'd worked for Rothmans, like a lot of Australian sportsmen, early in his career, but served, I think, 30 odd years for Claude Neon, who put up neon advertising signs.
I wonder if they did the Sharkies golf shop sign in Sydney.
Well, they did all the ones down here, the Skipping Girl Vinegar and the Palaco sign, and an interesting part of the urban terrain.
What's the one up on the silos is that the Nilex clock?
That's the Nilex clock
that tells the temperature.
It doesn't do it anymore.
Not anymore.
It lies dormant.
It's from that Paul Kelly song, isn't
it? Clock. Yeah. And you've got the Chapel Foundation dinner on this week, Pete.
Yeah, the same day, actually. I was just wondering how Greg and Ian will go, having to go down to the funeral and then come up for the dinner. Yeah. But yes, we do have the dinner. It's massive this year. It's our biggest ever. A bit nervous about this, actually. We capped ticket sales at 565. Jeez. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
It shows the love for Dennis. I think it shows that these dinners are great fun. And,
yes.
I have to say that because I'm a member of the foundation, but I think that they actually are. They're great cricket nights and always have good guests and good people to talk to. So I think people are really locked into it in the calendar now, even though it shifts in the calendar. But just Dennis Keith Lilly. I think there's just something about Dennis Lilly, isn't there? And Dan from Fisher Classics has gone some way to capturing that in a piece that he's written on Cricket Etal about the artwork that he's very kindly donated to the auction.
And it's
that
great.
Will be, donated to the dinner that we'll be auctioning.
But there's a rarity about Dennis too, because he's not overexposed in the media. He doesn't commentate. He doesn't write. When you hear from Dennis, you always cock an ear because it's almost always worth hearing, and it's resonant. Isn't it? He speaks with an authority that comes naturally that you can't confect.
It sure is resonant because I think I remember his one statement as chair of the WACA. Do you remember that story? We were in the WACA press box and something had happened. Oh,
Mitchell Johnson.
We weren't in. Yeah, Mitchell Johnson had passed his wickets, hasn't he? I don't know if we were in Perth, but somebody rang the WACA and said, we've got to get a quote from Dennis. Come on, he's the chair of the WACA. He should be doing. I think was at the WACA that game. And he says, what was it? Very pleased for him and tell the pricks that's all they'll get. That's the quote.
Now you've got a prop. You've got a prop in the background, Pete. Do you want to go and fetch it? This is a piece of legendary sporting history.
Yeah. If anyone's watching this.
Really something. The crossed rifles, yes.
If people aren't YouTube affiliated, I'll put a picture on the website. In fact, I'll write a piece about this bat. But there it is. That is the Combat, made by Combats. Dennis Lilly.
Pending.
Patent pending.
Yes.
He crossed sort of armour-light rifles there or whatever.
And I think it was made by Camalco, wasn't it?
Yep,
from
it
aluminium.
Sure was. Yeah, it was. It was made. I think the original one was just roughed up, but out of a piece
Look
of
at those
sort of
edges.
siding.
Look at those edges.
Look down there.
Oh,
look at that!
Wow.
Look at the grains.
I had no idea. It was hollow.
Yeah, it's hollow.
Yeah.
And it sounds terrible. And this one, there's a rattle in it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it might be the first ever aluminium bat that needs a handle replaced. But it's got 3 distinct cherries on it. Now, one of those cherries, because this was apparently the bat that was used in that innings, in the test match. And it's a good shot, actually, if you look it up on YouTube.
It's not bad. I looked it up last week myself. Yeah.
Straight drive?
Yep.
Greg Chappell thought it should have gone for 4. It only went for 3.
Hit it on the up. It was off both of them. It was off both of them. Hit it on the up. It's a nice shot.
Had some decent pace, I thought, off the bat. And I think maybe the outfield was a bit slow, but that was what Greg said, okay, enough of this shit. Get that bat out of his hands and we've got to get
the clang reverberating around the field.
Hey?
You probably heard the clang reverberating around the field.
Well, he did, because as you remind me, Dennis had actually used it in a previous game against the West Indies.
Brisbane Test,
Yeah, now I can't recall. Who was the player? Was it Harper? It was somebody like that who was fielding at point. And when nobody realised it was an aluminium bat until they heard the ball hit the bat. So he did actually connect with one ball. The West Indian player fell to the ground laughing. It sounded so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Greg tells the story that he was in the nets before Dennis went out to bat with the bat and just shaking his head thinking, what the hell's going on here?
You're not going to use that thing, are you?
Yeah. And then Dennis says, it's great. Have a go with it. And he says, no, thanks. I've heard enough. That was 79.
So sharp you could almost shave with them. It's an extraordinary shape, isn't it? As well as being extraordinary substance.
Oh, yeah. They're a bloody awful thing. We had one in the kit bag at Strathdale Maristians, one of the Morris Brothers teams I was playing with. I don't think we ever used it in a bat. I think we in a game. I think we used it in training. They were terrible things. But it's something. There's something distinctly 1970s about aluminium too. Yeah, would you have done projects at school about aluminium production in Australia as a future? You know, it was It was
and aluminium foil. Aluminium foil was in every.
It was funky. We got aluminium cladding on our house at 26 Clark Street, Bendigo, and a lot of people did, which got dints in it when we played cricket out the back. But
it is almost the aluminium age, isn't it?
I think it is. It is. You were watching highlights of that test match the other day, the one at December 1979 at the Wacker, featuring an Australian, what they call debutant, Gideon. Do you remember? Julian Wiener's first test?
Yes, you're right, actually. You're dead right, because McCosker played in the first test match, didn't he, opening with Laird?
Yeah.
And, Graham Dilley ran him out brilliantly. Fantastic throw, side on.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't want to say that. I wouldn't say this to Greg Chappell's face, but he did barbecue him. It was the commentators were saying he was a bit slow to set off. I think he was. I think if he'd set off, he would have been in trouble anyway. I mean, it's interesting. What struck me as interesting was that the umpire, the old-fashioned sight of the umpire actually giving a run-out decision. And no one going to the DRS.
There was so much more certainty in those days, wasn't there, around cricket? I like that. Yeah. What was he on when he got run out? Do you remember?
He was 11. He got 58 in the second innings.
Yeah. Boycott was 99 not out in that test match, wasn't he?
And missed the opportunity to get 100 because he was trying to protect Willis from the strike. I think Willis got out to Dimmock, didn't he, at the other end? And 2 99s in the game, Pete. I think you reminded me of that last week. Kim Hughes,
that's right.
hit a half volley to square leg. A bit unlucky actually. He hit it well, but he hit it head high to Mike Brearley. Good test match. A classic kind of low scoring test match. No big scores. I don't think there were any hundreds in it. Fluctuated all the way and slow moving but absorbing.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, best remembered, naturally enough, for that aluminium bat, which was a massive stink at the time.
It was.
It caught you. I think they'd just come back from World Series cricket, hadn't they?
He threw it a bloody long way too.
Yes, it went. It sort of, and it made
It spiraled, didn't it?
It made it sound like a helicopter as it spun through, as it rotated like a propeller over Greg Chappell's head. Because remember, Ronnie Hogg refused to go out there with a wooden bat, having tried once and failed. So Greg said, "All right, I'll do it myself." Yeah. But it's one of those conversations that you have with a sort of degree of distance between the two of you. But some of the English headlines at the time, there was actually a very good one, Lily the Stink, which was, of course, a reference to the old song Lily the Pink, wasn't it? Silly Lily, I didn't mind. Blofeld was insane with rage about it. He wrote that it was the most disgraceful thing that he'd ever seen on a cricket field, and that that Lily should get a life ban.
But of course, he wasn't breaching the rules.
He wasn't.
No. He was well within his rights to use it. He wasn't well within his rights to disobey the umpires. But in theory, there was nothing preventing him from using a bat made from some substance other than wood at the time.
No, and it wasn't. Well, the next year they changed the laws. Should have called it the Dennis Lilly law, I guess, because in April 1980, that's when they sort of like the German beer purity laws, Gideon. They prescribed exactly what could be contained in a cricket bat, or what a cricket bat could be constructed of.
It interests me that you had a combat in the Strathdale Maristians.
It wasn't. I don't.
Yeah. But the theory wasn't it, that he wanted.
I wonder if it was a knockoff.
He thought there should be a cheap bat. That was the whole. He thought the bats were too expensive. Wooden bats were too expensive. Hard to believe that they were too expensive in 1979 when you think about what they cost now. But he thought that a cheap variant was necessary for grassroots cricket, and I don't think he intended to use it for the duration of his Test career. He wanted to publicise it. He certainly publicised it.
Oh yeah, that was his. Yeah, he just get a little bit of publicity and see how the business goes. I don't think it went all that well. They did have a lot of orders, but then once the rules are changed, it sort of becomes a bit redundant, doesn't it? Yeah. One of our readers, Owen Hills, says that his father was at that match and never went to a game of cricket again. He was so appalled by the carry-on the field.
Interesting.
They were pretty heady times, the 70s in cricket, with that Australian cricket team.
No code of conduct. The umpires were the sole judges of fair play. I think the players coming out of World Series cricket had they had a renewed sense of their own importance, their centrality to the game. The other thing was that, of course, replays had begun to proliferate and had demonstrated that sometimes, well, actually quite regularly, umpires were wrong in their adjudication, which had undermined the umpire's authority, which had yet to be reinforced by referees or any systematic program of discipline. When Javed Miandad got involved in that altercation with Dennis in Perth in 1981, if you remember, I don't think there was a code of conduct under which he could be penalised. They suspended him from 2 one-day games, but it was all very irregular, all very incoherent. There was a belief, actually, for a period after World Series cricket that the players could be relied upon to discipline themselves. The players were actually sitting in on their own hearings, and I think that's when, with the Javed Miandad incident, that kind of brought that assumption to an end. The Australian Cricket Board were incensed that Lilly had incurred such a tiny penalty for such a serious infraction.
Well, did you do that period when you wrote that history of the Australian Cricket Board?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a very big administration anyway. So who would decide on what was a breach and what the consequences of a breach were?
I think in that case, I think Bob Merriman told me that he had sat in on the code of conduct in hearing, and that look, I'm going on memory here.
Yeah.
But I think he said that he saw something in the footage that suggested that Miandad, that he saw footage from some angle that suggested that me and Dad had made contact with Lily first.
Oh,
as
he
they
had
passed
from
in
memory.
the middle of the wicket.
Yeah.
But I think then, and I'm going on memory here, I apologise to Bob if I've got this wrong, that then the videotape seized up in the VCR and it became impossible to retrieve. So they only had the evidence of this fleeting acquaintance with the vision the first time. And I think that there was a determination to just try to get over this hurdle as painlessly as possible. So
Betamax tapes.
Betamax. There was probably a Betamax, exactly. No one around to repair it.
Oh dear, yeah. Anyway, so I'm very much. I mean, as we said, Dennis doesn't speak much, but he will speak at the dinner, and that's going to be outstanding. I think Dan's piece and Dan's artwork, which should show up at my house today, is very exciting. Paul McGrath has done a fantastic piece out of his cricket ball art that you're probably familiar with.
Oh, the DK? It's
he's done Dennis.
Yeah.
And he's captured him really well.
From
really
that
well.
great
It's quite
Patrick
exciting.
Egar photo in 1972. Yeah. He never looked better, did he?
Yeah, we should put that
on
the
long
site.
hair, the flowing mane, the big moustache, the athletic leap. He was just seemed to outstrip the surly bonds of earth. So who's interviewing Dennis, by the way?
Adam Spencer.
Excellent.
I'm lining up a few choice video clips. Hopefully Cricket Australia will send me today. Okay. And I'll give you a full and frank account of the dinner on Thursday morning. I'll post it to the website. I'm always relieved when that is over. Gideon. That is a massive task. We have, well, not personally, but we have 3 poor, sad bastards who have to do the seating for 565 people and get their dietary requirements and do this and do that. They're all volunteers, and you can imagine what it's like, because someone buys a table and then doesn't tell you who's coming, or you can't get the list of guests and blah, blah, blah. But anyway.
It's like I always used to say when I was organising the South Yarra Cricket Club Trivia Night, the best night of the year was the night after that, because it was a year till the next one. Yes,
well, there's something I say that you don't, clearly, is that there's about writing books. The best feeling in the world is not writing a book. It's the day after you've delivered that manuscript. Well, have you got? Speaking of which, when's your next one due? You've just been at a writers' festival.
I have. Yeah, I went to Sorrento for the weekend. It was a great festival. I mean, talk about ticket sales. There were 20,000 ticket sales down there.
Wow!
It was incredible. I've never seen audiences so packed. All my sessions were sold out.
Of course, they
nothing
were.
To do with me.
There was a waiting list
because every session was sold out. Extremely well organised by Corey Perk and some really outstanding talent down there, and me. So very enjoyable weekend.
I'm very much looking forward to our weekend if readers have got their diaries in front of them, and at 26th and 27th of July at the Phillip Island
Writers' Festival. Exactly.
Festival of
Stories. Yes, you're right.
Festival of Stories.
Yeah.
You know the topic of our little discussion?
Remind me.
From Murdoch to the new media.
That's us.
That's us, isn't it?
Torchbearers.
Torchbearers for the new media. Look at us. Look where we ended up. But that is going to be great fun down there. I'm looking forward to that. It's a very interesting lineup of guests as well. So if anyone wants to go down to Phillip Island, we've got a bit to do before that. We've got to go to Et al. So we're going to go to Et al. The day we arrive in. We arrive in London. We're going to go all the way to Et al.
I'll be linking up with you.
Yeah. We'll be there for an hour and a half. We'll go to bed. Wake up in the morning, we'll drive all the way back to London. It's going to be a great trip. We do need to find the Et al. Cricket team and see what they're doing on that Saturday night, if there's something on in the village. I suspect it's probably at the one pub.
Yep. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to a beer in the one pub in Et al. Now, do we have time for a top 10, Pete?
Oh, well, people can just turn off if they're not interested.
If people are still listening.
Yeah.
But
what's the top
I
10 topic again?
Yeah, I suggested this morning. because I was scrolling through. Every morning you look at your phone and you think, oh well, here's another game from another T20 game somewhere, the Gulf Giants or the Pal Royals or something like that, and you're not quite sure where they are or what they're doing or what it's for. But I was looking at the results this night, thinking the Multan Sultans. That's a great name for a cricket team.
This is really annoying. Even before you suggested that, I wrote down Multan Sultan this morning. Because I was just noting that Mohammad Rizwan was going very well for them. And I was looking at that name and thinking, fuck, I love that name.
It's a fucking great name.
Multan Sultan.
Yeah. Well, look, the good thing is...
The Multana Sultana.
That's the women's team.
I like the Multan Sultans.
But the good news is it's not on my list. I've found some better ones, yeah.
Oh well.
So and this tradition of naming teams, as we noted the other day, it dates back to those in the mid-90s where the Shield teams started to name themselves. The Queensland Bulls and the Victorian Bush Rangers, and then Kent came up with the Spitfires for their one-day team, which I always thought was a bloody great name.
I don't mind that, but was the Spitfire made in Kent? They should have some association, I think.
Well, yeah, the ground, the St. Lawrence ground is called the Spitfire ground in Canterbury. That beautiful ground that used to have the St. Lawrence lime inside the boundary.
Right.
So, Kent was a key part of fighter command during the Battle of Britain. And I noticed that they still are the Kent Spitfires. So, hats off to them in a day when every team is like a variation on the super hot Royal Sixes.
Right.
Anyway, so who's on your list?
So that's your favourite name? Is it the?
No. I've got 5 others.
But
once you start looking, it's a horn of plenty.
Yeah, well, I, of course, did. I obviously like the Multana Sultanas or the Molten Sultans or whatever, however you want to pronounce that. There is a team getting around. It must be a name I think it's a name from some movie. I'm sorry that I don't get these cultural references. My cultural references sort of finished in the 70s. The Duck Dodgers.
Whoa, where are they?
Well, Duck Dodger is actually a movie character. It's Daffy Duck does,
Yeah, right, yeah.
Well, I think
Duck Dodgers. Isn't it Duck Dodgers in the 21st century?
Yeah.
Isn't it meant to be sort of a play on Buck Rogers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a play on Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
Duck Rogers. Well, I saw that there was a club in Australia called the Duck Dodgers who were recently in a game against the Drunken Risky Singles.
Right.
It was an 8-over game.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember who won, but it was November last year. But there's also a team in India going by the name of Duck Dodgers, I think. But anyway, I think they're based up around the Gold Coast or something, the Australian version of them. If anyone plays for the Duck Dodgers, get in contact with us. That's
fantastic. That's fantastic. Pakistan, just to stay in Pakistan for the moment, I was always very fond of the Sialkot Stallions.
Yeah.
Remember then they played in the old National T20 Cup. A very successful team. But the one that sticks in my mind, it dates back to the Indian Cricket League. Sudha Chandra rival to the Indian Premier League, and it was the
precursor to actually.
Yeah, they had some great names. They had the Hyderabad Heroes, the Ahmedabad Rockets, but the one I really liked was the Lahore Badshahs. Apparently, it's just a Persian word meaning king or emperor, so it's really sort of Lahore Kings, but Badshahs. They were the last champions of the Indian Cricket League. So in fact, they are the reigning champions of the ICL. So if no one else remember them, I do.
Well, the IPL has got a lot of really shit over-egged names. Too much royalty in there for my likings, as I pointed out before, with the Knights and the Kings and the Royals all over the fucking place.
And to be fair, the Big Bash League is exactly the same.
Correct. Yes. But I just wanted to be in the meeting when you had the Pune team You know, like what the
yeah.
fuck? The rising Pune super
Yeah.
giants. You know, it's the verb, it's the adjective, it's the fucking. I would have gone for poon juices, but anyway.
Never use 2 words when 3 will do.
That's right. Not only are they the supergiants, they're the rising supergiants. But wait. We've got to get Puna in there as well. I just fucking throw it in, put it second.
Yeah.
No one will notice. Yeah.
Well, actually, the poon juices would be very good because there is that line of Alan Sugar's, wasn't there, about Premier League football, that Premier League football, the money was like prune juice. It went straight through. And that certainly applied to the Pune Warriors, who were the other Pune team, and the rising Pune Supergiants as well. Okay, I'm going to the Nepal Premier League.
Oh
next,
dear. Oh dear, have you really?
And there's some very good names there too. There's the Janakpur Bolts. There's the Chitwan Rhinos. Didn't know that rhinos were indigenous to Nepal. But the one that I really like, the Karnali Yaks. YAKS.
Yak.
I want to see the symbol. I really want to see the symbol.
I remember talking to this guy in Durbar Square in Kathmandu like 40 years ago. And he's trying to explain to me what this sort of Tibetan, like, flappy thing was, you know, I can't describe it.
A dhoti or something.
What is that? What the hell is it? It's this collection of hair. And he called it, he said, it's the back of yak. And I'm going, back of yak. Oh, it's a yak's tail. Back of yak. Nice. I kind of like the sound of a back of yak.
That could easily be the symbol for the Karnali Yaks.
Could be, couldn't it?
Yeah.
They have a team. I actually was. I did. Yeah. The Colours X Factor. What the hell's going on there?
Whoa.
Yeah, I think they're actually in the playing Colours X Factor.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
In Thailand, have a soccer team dating back to the 1960s, who are entertainingly named and creatively named the Thailand Tobacco Management Team. Gosh, pretty good, isn't it? But anyway, I didn't get in with them either. So I got distracted by all sorts of things.
It's easy to get distracted, isn't it?
Scottsdale Community College Fighting Artichokes. The minor league baseball team I've always liked was the Montgomery Biscuits.
Mm-hmm.
Biscuits is a fucking great name.
That's
for
a great
team,
name,
isn't it? And remember J.M. Barry's team?
The Allah Akbaris.
The Allah Akbaris, because they thought that Allah Akbar was kind of a God give me luck or something like that. Not God is great.
God help us in Moorish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, Barry, so Allah Akbar Barry's, was a little bit like the Bluesberries, McGaudy's band. You know,
I've got the Al Hakbari's annual up on my bookshelf. It includes such important commandments as do not practice on the opposition's ground. It can only give them confidence.
Didn't Barry boast that he bowled so badly that if it came out wrong, he could fetch it and bowl it again before it got to the other end? Conan Doyle played there, didn't he?
He did. E.W. Hornung. Yeah.
Kipling.
Yep.
So, Allah Akbaris, that was another one of mine.
Good name.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm next.
Are you?
I think that this team was in the original Sri Lankan Premier League, and they actually had some pretty handy players. I was looking at them this morning, including Andrew McDonald and Callum Ferguson. So I'm going to bail them up next season and ask them if they remember their season at the Uva Next.
How do you spell that?
Next.
The first bit? Uva?
Uva, yeah, it's a geographic area, but the Uva Next. But in fact, there was no
quite
next
economical for a Sri Lankan name.
They only lasted for one season.
Oh, that's bad luck, isn't it?
They did get into the Champions League in 2012. They fell out in the qualifying round. They had Chris Gale, although he didn't play because he'd strained an eyelash. They had Shivnarine Chandapal, Upal Thuranga, Jacob Oram. It's a pretty handy team.
I didn't know that Andrew McDonald played over there.
There was no sequel.
Right. That's perhaps why Ronnie was right across tactics for that last series.
The Sri Lankan Premier League was the one where they handed out bricks of cash in the dressing room as player payments.
Oh.
Yeah, Johnny Hastings was telling me that. They just used to get paid in cash. So they're coming back to Australia with sort of fists full of US dollars.
Oh, if they're US dollars, they're going all right, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'll do a shout out to the San Francisco Unicorns because
good name.
In my world, unicorn is a gay symbol.
Yeah.
But other people are perplexed when I suggest that and say it's a business reference. It's to a startup business, which obviously. But in San Francisco, I reckon you've got all bases covered if you've gone for the Unicorns, and it's of course Pat Cummins' team. Not that he'll be playing for them this year.
No, but my next one is also American, Pete, in the Western Division of minor league cricket.
Yes,
there are the San Diego Surf Riders. It's a team that the Beach Boys could play for.
Yeah.
And interestingly, you know who's playing for them?
Mitch Marsh.
No, this is minor league. Take it down a notch here.
Oh, right.
But Umar Akmal is playing for them.
One of the Akmals.
Yeah, and he's still only 34. He's on the other side of it. He's on the other side of a corruption ban, admittedly. But is it too late for Umar Akmal to work his passage back to Pakistan cricket through the San Diego Surf Riders?
Stranger things have happened.
Stranger things have happened, indeed.
A report's just been done on the state of American cricket. I think some prominent Australian cricket identities have prepared that.
Yes.
For them and about their future. Be interesting to read it, I reckon. I'm intrigued by American cricket. My mate Goose made runs again, by the way, in the PSL.
Did he?
America's only international franchise player. Well, not
should
really.
have him on the pod.
What?
Should have him on the pod.
We should.
Reach out, mate. We'll turn him into a cult figure.
We should get Hazy on, actually, because Mike Hazeman's over there commentating for about the 55th season running, and they've got freedom this time. They're actually allowed out and about.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
We better enjoy it while it lasts.
Like working for one of those Saudi airlines where you have to stay in the compound and you're not allowed out.
So have you got another one?
No.
I got one more.
How many have I given? Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, I've got one more. You just keep
going. Yeah, I was going to do one because I just knew you'd run with it. Go on.
Look, it's not a ball tear. I was quite attracted by the Jammu Janbaz in the Kashmir Premier League.
Ooh, I like that.
But I think the Bangladesh Premier League does need some recognition. They have had a bit of a crack. So you've got the Rangpur Riders,
nice. Yeah.
Sort of, I don't know, they feel like they're riding high in the saddle like a group of Texas
Back
Rangers.
And
there's, of course, the Camilla Victorians, who I always want to have as the symbol, Her Majesty Queen Victoria swinging a cricket bat. But the one that I just go back to is the Chittagong Vikings, because of the close connection between Bangladesh and Vikings.
You'd understand it if it was Ireland.
Exactly, yeah. Anyway, there we are. It's obviously we gave this the usual 5 minutes of thought on cricket et al.
Oh,
but it is a rich pudding. If you get started, it's very hard to stop. I might do another 5 next week.
Yeah,
why not?
Franchise
is that all we've got
names
time
next
for
week.
On cricket et al. this week?
Yeah, that's all we've got time
for.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Do that thing you do at the end.
Okay.
But do something commercial. Tell them to go to the website and buy a T-shirt or something.
Yeah, shouldn't I? Okay. If you're not a subscriber to Cricket et al., well, you really, really should be. It's cricketetal.com. We write there virtually every day because we just can't help ourselves.
Some of us
it's a great way to keep
more
in
than
touch
others,
with
Gideon, at the moment.
Yes.
I can't stop you. I tell you to have an easy week, can you? Reverse.
I get that.
Yeah.
It's an itch I have to scratch.
Okay.
Cricketetal.com. If you're not a subscriber there, please lend us your support. We can't do this living on oxygen alone.
Especially with our trip to go and cover the World Test Championship final coming up.
Various philanthropic endeavours such as the Chapel Foundation dinner and Mustafa Kamari and the Yarras. They need to be supported some way. So keep us financial. That would be really good if you could do that. But that's all we've got time for in Cricket et al. this week. Until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.